Can a soul proclaim faith, yet stand as stone, unyielding before the storm's fierce call? What force lingers in a heart that speaks of awe, but trembles when summoned to act? Does the wanderer, lost in doubt's shadow, still find the narrow path to heaven's grace? When trials blaze like wildfire, will you flee, or let them forge your spirit anew? And when the Creator whispers your name in the silence, will your life echo His truth? In the shadowed valleys of the human spirit, where hope battles despair, a voice resounds. It speaks not of fleeting ease, but of enduring courage, not of belief alone, but of a faith made visible through deeds. Beneath a sky heavy with tempest, where clouds churn like restless spirits, a village clings to the edge of a desolate plain. The air is thick with the scent of parched earth, laced with the bitter tang of ash from hearths long extinguished. A low rumble of thunder rolls across the horizon, its mournful cadence echoing the sorrow of a people tested. The village, carved from weathered stone and gnarled timber, glows faintly under the trembling light of oil lamps, their flames flickering like fragile hopes against the encroaching dark. The streets, once alive with the laughter of children and the clatter of carts, now lie silent, save for the mournful wail of wind through barren fields. The ground beneath is cracked, the wells nearly dry, in the hope that once bound the people frays like a worn rope. Here, in this crucible of toil and prayer, a community wrestles with their faith, their lives a delicate thread stretched taut between trust and despair. The fields, once green with promise, now stretch endlessly before the village, their surface marred by deep fissures, like scars on the earth's weary flesh. The wind carries dust in swirling eddies, stinging the eyes and coating the tongue with a gritty bitterness. A lone olive tree stands at the village's edge, its gnarled branches twisting toward the sky, a silent witness to seasons of plenty and want. The faint scent of its leaves, dry and brittle, mingles with the acrid tang of smoke from distant fires, a reminder of the fragility of life in this forsaken place. The villagers move through their tasks with heavy steps, their faces gaunt, their eyes shadowed with the weight of hunger and fear. Some pause to pray, their voices soft but fervent, while others turn away, their hands clutching sacks of grain, their hearts hardened by the specter of famine. Have you ever stood in such a place, where the weight of your choices pressed upon your soul? Among these souls dwells Elias, a young man whose heart is a battlefield of doubt and yearning. His eyes, once alight with the dreams of youth, now carry the shadow of uncertainty, like clouds veiling a once clear sky. His hair, dark and tangled, clings to his forehead, damp with sweat from the day's labor, raised in the warmth of his father's house, where the aroma of cedar and freshly baked bread wove memories of peace. Elias grew hearing the sacred stories of faith. He learned of Abraham, whose trust led him to the altar's edge, offering his son in obedience to God's command. His faith made complete by his actions. James chapter 21-22. He heard of Rahab, a woman of no repute, whose courage in hiding the spies reshaped her destiny and secured her place among the faithful. James 2:25. Yet, as he stands at the village's border, the wind clawing at his tattered cloak, those tales feel distant, like stars obscured by the storm raging within him. His hands, calloused from labor, tremble slightly, and his breath catches in the chill air. Heavy with the scent of dust and decay, the weight of the village's suffering presses upon him, and he wonders if the God of Abraham and Rahab still hears their cries. He believes in God, or so he tells himself, but his hands remain idle, his heart ensnared in a web of uncertainty. Faith, he murmurs, his voice barely audible above the wind's howl. What worth is it when the earth itself betrays us? His words echo the piercing challenge of James, sharp and unrelenting. What good is it, my brothers and sisters? If someone claims to have faith but has no deeds, can such faith save them? James 2:14. The question cuts deep, like a blade through his thoughts, and he wonders if his belief, untested by action, is merely a shadow, a hollow echo of what faith should be. The wind carries the faint scent of straw and sweat, grounding him in the harsh reality of the village's plight. He recalls his father's hands, strong and steady, breaking bread for strangers, and his mother's voice, singing softly of God's promises. Yet those memories feel like relics of a lost world, and Elias wonders if he has the strength to live them out. The words of Jesus echo faintly, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Matthew 5:16, "But how can light shine in such darkness?" When the world tests your belief, do your actions proclaim it, or do they betray your silence? Elias wanders to the village square, where the elders convene beneath a gnarled olive tree, its branches heavy with the weight of countless seasons, its roots deep in the unyielding earth. The square is a patchwork of cobblestones, worn smooth by generations of feet, and the air carries the faint scent of dust and dried herbs from nearby stalls. Now empty and abandoned, the elders' faces, etched with lines of labor and loss, reflect a quiet resolve tempered by weariness. Their robes frayed but held with dignity. Among them stands Miriam, a woman whose eyes burn with unyielding faith, her presence a beacon in the gathering dusk. Her hair, streaked with silver, catches the fading light, and her voice, steady as the stone beneath her feet, cuts through the murmurs of the crowd like a blade through silk. "Count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds," she declares, her words drawn from the sacred text of James 1:2, each syllable resonant with conviction. "For the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything," James 1:3-4. The crowd listens, some nodding, their hands clasped in prayer, their eyes fixed on Miriam, while others shift uneasily, their lips pressed tight, their brows furrowed with doubt. Elias stands at the edge, his heart recoiling at the paradox. Joy in suffering. The notion feels like a riddle carved in unyielding stone, too heavy for his weary spirit to lift. How can one find joy when the fields lie barren, when children cry for bread, when hope seems but a fading ember? The faces around him mirror his struggle, some alight with trust, their eyes shining with a quiet resolve, while others whisper doubts, their voices sharp as thorns. Miriam continues, her voice unwavering, resonant with a conviction that seems to draw strength from an unseen source. "Our faith is like gold, precious but unrefined," she says, her hands gesturing to the horizon, where the last rays of sunlight bleed crimson across the cracked earth, casting long shadows like fingers of despair. It is in the furnace of trials that its impurities are burned away, revealing its true worth. The drought is not our enemy, but our teacher. It calls us to trust, to endure, to become complete. Elias's mind churns, his thoughts a tangle of hope and skepticism. He envisions gold, its surface marred by dross, yet gleaming brighter as the flames consume its flaws. The image stirs him, but doubt clings like damp earth to his soul, heavy and cold. Can his faith, fragile and untested, withstand such a forge? The words of the psalmist rise unbidden, sharp and piercing. "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts," Psalm 139:23. The thought unsettles him. For what would the Almighty find in the depths of his soul, a spark of trust or a void of fear? He shifts his weight, the dust beneath his sandals grinding softly against the cobblestones, and wonders if his heart is ready for such scrutiny. The air grows heavy, the scent of dust mingling with the faint tang of sweat from the gathered crowd. And Elias feels the weight of their collective longing, their shared trial. What would God find in your heart? If his gaze pierced its hidden places now, Miriam's words linger, like the scent of rain on a parched wind, stirring something deep within Elias. She speaks of trials as opportunities, not curses, echoing James's teaching that perseverance leads to maturity. James 1:4. "Consider the olive tree," she says, her hand resting on the gnarled trunk beside her, its bark rough and ancient under her touch. It endures the scorching sun, the biting wind, yet its roots grow deeper, its fruit richer. So it is with us. God uses our trials to shape us, to root us in His truth. The crowd murmurs, some nodding, their faces softening, while others whisper doubts, their voices sharp and jagged. Elias feels the weight of her words, but his heart resists. He has heard of God's promises, but the barren fields and empty stores mock them. Yet, as Miriam's eyes meet his, he senses a challenge not to argue, but to act. She continues, her voice steady, weaving scripture into her counsel. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Psalm 23. The words are a balm, yet they sting. For Elias's wants are many food, rain, certainty. Miriam speaks of Abraham, whose faith was tested on the mountain, and Rahab, whose courage defied her past. Their faith was not mere words, she says, her eyes scanning the crowd. It was action, trust made visible. So must ours be. Elias feels a pang, his father's face rising in his memory, his hands breaking bread for strangers, his voice steady in prayer. The words of James echo faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action. Is dead, James 2:17. The square grows quiet as the elders disperse, their robes rustling like dry leaves against the cobblestones. Elias lingers, his gaze fixed on the olive tree, its twisted branches a testament to endurance through countless storms. He recalls his father's voice, warm and steady. From years past, faith is not a feeling. Elias, it is a choice to move, to give, to trust. Even when the path is shrouded, his father, now gone, had lived those words, sharing his harvest with the needy, praying through storms, trusting when hope seemed lost. Elias's throat tightens, his fingers clenching the edge of his cloak, the fabric rough against his skin. He has believed, but has he chosen? How does one awaken a faith that lies dormant, like a seed buried in unyielding soil? As twilight deepens, casting long shadows across the village, Elias seeks solace by the village well, its ancient stones worn smooth by generations of hands. The air grows chill, carrying the faint metallic tang of water hidden deep within the earth, a scent that speaks of life beneath the barren surface. The well stands at the village's heart, its rim etched with faint carvings, names, prayers, promises left by those who came before, their hopes etched in stone. Elias kneels, his fingers tracing the rough edges, feeling the cool, unyielding surface against his skin. The silence is broken only by the distant cry of a night bird, its call sharp and fleeting, like a warning from the unseen. The stars begin to pierce the sky, their light faint but unyielding, like promises kept through ages. He closes his eyes and whispers a prayer, the words of James rising like a tide within him. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you, James 1:5. The prayer feels foreign on his tongue, yet it stirs a quiet longing, not for answers, but for the wisdom to see beyond his doubts, to act despite the trembling in his heart. In the stillness, a memory surfaces, sharp and vivid, like a flame piercing the dark. His father stood at this very well, years ago, drawing water for a weary traveler. The man, dust-covered and gaunt, had no coin to offer. Yet Elias's father gave freely, his hand steady, his smile warm as the hearth. Faith is a choice, my son, his father had said. His voice an anchor in the storm of Elias's youth. To give when you have little, to trust when you cannot see, this is the path of the righteous. Elias's chest aches, his breath catching in the chill air. He has believed, but has he walked that path? The memory is a mirror, reflecting his own hesitation, his own fear. He recalls another verse, one his mother sang in quieter days, her voice soft as a lullaby. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. The words feel like a lifeline, fragile yet strong, pulling him from the mire of doubt. He rises, the cool air brushing his face, and vows to seek this wisdom, to let it guide his steps. But doubt lingers, a shadow at the edge of his resolve. Can he act? When fear holds him fast, the nightbird calls again, its cry echoing in the silence. And Elias feels a stirring, a call to move, to choose. The well's stones seem to hum with the prayers of those who came before, their faith etched in every groove. And Elias wonders if he can add his own mark to their legacy. The words of Jesus echo faintly. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Matthew 5:6. What holds you fast? When God calls you to move, the following dawn breaks with a pale, hesitant light, the sky streaked with clouds that promise no rain. Elias returns to the village, his heart heavy but stirred, his sandals stirring dust along the narrow paths. The streets are quiet, save for the soft clatter of a cart and the murmur of early risers, their voices hushed with the weight of shared hardship. The air carries the faint scent of straw and sweat, grounding him in the moment. As he passes the edge of the village, he sees a figure, a woman, frail and bent, her two children clinging to her tattered robes. Sarah, a widow known to all, stands alone, her face gaunt from hunger, her eyes carrying a quiet dignity that pierces the morning's haze. A small crowd gathers, some offering words, "May God provide," but their feet carry them swiftly away, their hands empty, their faces averted. Elias feels a pang, sharp and urgent, as the words of James echo like a drumbeat in his mind. Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, "Go in peace, keep warm and well fed," but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? James 2:15-16. His hands tremble, empty save for the weight of his own meager stores, a loaf of bread, a small pouch of grain, barely enough for his own table. Doubt whispers, cold and insistent, "What can you give when you have so little?" Yet, as if guided by an unseen hand, Elias steps forward. The dust stirs beneath his sandals, and the air carries the faint scent of straw and sweat, grounding him in the reality of his choice. He places the bread and grain in Sarah's hands, his fingers brushing hers, rough and calloused from years of toil. Her eyes, rimmed with tears, meet his, and she whispers, her voice trembling but clear, "Blessed are those who show mercy, for they will be shown mercy." Matthew 5:7. In that moment, Elias feels a spark, a fleeting glimpse of faith made tangible, a deed that breathes life into his belief. Sarah's children, wide-eyed and silent, clutch the bread, their small hands trembling with hunger and hope. The crowd watches, some with furrowed brows, others with softened gazes, their murmurs fading into stillness. Elias's heart races, not with pride, but with a quiet awe. He has acted, and in acting, he has glimpsed the truth of James's words, "Faith without deeds is lifeless, but faith that moves is alive, vibrant, transformative." The air feels lighter, as if the act has lifted a weight from the village's heart. He recalls the words of Jesus, spoken in a distant land, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap." Luke 6:38. Have you ever felt such a spark, when your hands moved before your heart could falter? The act, though small, sends ripples through the village. By midday, the square hums with new energy. A woman, her face lined with worry, shares a jar of oil, her hands trembling as she hands it to a neighbor. A man, his shoulders stooped from labor, offers a basket of dried figs, his eyes meeting those of a grateful stranger. The air carries the scent of shared provisions, oil, grain, the faint sweetness of fruit, and the murmurs of the crowd soften, tinged with possibility. Elias watches, his heart lifted. Yet he knows this is but a beginning. The drought persists, its grip tightening like a noose, and his doubts linger like shadows at noon. Can a single act sustain him through the trials yet to come? He recalls the miracle of the loaves and fishes, where a boy's small offering fed thousands, John 6:9-11. Could his act, so small in the face of famine, be multiplied by a greater hand? The psalmist's assurance rises, steady and sure, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want, Psalm 23:1. Yet doubt creeps in, a whisper in the quiet. What if the stores run dry? What if the famine claims us all? Elias pushes the thought aside, clinging to the promise of Proverbs. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. The words are a lifeline, fragile yet strong, urging him to trust beyond what his eyes can see. What would it mean for you to give? Trusting that God's provision surpasses your lack. Days pass, and Elias finds himself drawn to the elders' council, held daily beneath the olive tree in the village square. The square is alive with the soft bustle of village life, children chasing a stray goat, their laughter a rare melody, women carrying water jars, their steps heavy but steady, men mending nets, their hands calloused from years of labor. The air carries the scent of dust and dried thyme, a reminder of seasons when the fields were green. Miriam stands, her voice a steady thread weaving through the crowd's murmurs, her presence commanding yet gentle. She teaches of wisdom from above, its nature pure, peace-loving, considerate, and full of mercy, James 3:17. This wisdom, she says, her eyes scanning the crowd, is not like the world's, which breeds envy and selfish ambition, leading to disorder in every evil practice. James 3:16, Elias sees this poison in the village. Some hoard their stores, their eyes narrowed with suspicion, their hands clutching what little remains. Others cast blame, their words sharp as flint, sparking strife among neighbors who once shared meals. He recalls James's vivid image, stark and sobering. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It sets the whole course of one's life on fire, James 3:6. The words strike him, for he has heard the village's murmurs, accusations of greed, gossip about failing crops, curses muttered in anger. He has felt the temptation to join them, to judge, to let his own frustrations spill forth like water from a broken jar. The air grows heavy with the scent of dust and tension, and Elias feels the weight of his own tongue, its power to bless or curse. He recalls the psalmist's prayer, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the door of my lips, Psalm 141:3. The prayer becomes his own, a plea for wisdom in every word, every thought. One evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and ash, a dispute erupts in the square, its tension crackling like dry tinder. The air grows taut, charged with the heat of conflict. Two men, Amos and Levi, clash over rights to a shared well, their voices rising and sharp, cutting accusations. Amos, broad-shouldered and proud, demands precedence, his fists clenched, his face flushed with entitlement. My family has toiled longer than yours, he bellows, his words heavy with the weight of pride. Levi, lean and defiant, retorts with venom, his eyes blazing. You hoard water while our children thirst. The crowd gathers, some fueling the strife with murmurs, others watching in uneasy silence, their faces taut with fear. Elias feels the urge to speak, to judge, his heart pounding with a mix of anger and fear. Amos's pride grates against him, a mirror of his own past arrogance, and Levi's bitterness stirs his own doubts, a reminder of his struggle to trust. Yet Miriam's warning echoes, clear and piercing, like a bell in the night. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings, who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be, James 3:9-10. What words have you loosed, in haste or wrath, that scarred another's soul? Elias steps between the men, his heart racing but his voice low and firm, the cobblestones beneath his feet feeling unsteady yet grounding. Brothers, he says, his words measured, each syllable chosen with care. Let us seek peace, not strife. The wisdom from above is gentle, full of mercy and impartial. Shall we curse one another or seek God's way, his voice? Drawn from James 3:17, surprises even himself, as if spoken by another, guided by a wisdom not his own. The men pause, their anger softening like wax before a flame. Amos's shoulders slump, his fists unclenching, and Levi's eyes drop, his defiance fading like smoke. The crowd disperses, their murmurs quieting. And Miriam nods, her eyes alight with quiet approval, her face softened by a smile that speaks of hope. Elias feels a shift within a sense that is faith, once a flickering ember, and is beginning to burn. The act of speaking peace, though small, feels like a victory, not over Amos or Levi, but over the fire of his own tongue. He recalls the words of Jesus, "Gentle yet piercing blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Matthew 5:9. The prayer becomes his own, a plea for wisdom in every word, every thought, every moment. But greater trials loom, casting a shadow over the village's fragile hope. At dusk, as the sky burns crimson, a messenger stumbles into the square, his face gaunt and dust-streaked, his breath ragged from a long journey. The crowd gathers, their whispers sharp with fear, their faces pale in the torchlight. The man speaks, his voice trembling, each word heavy with dread. Bandits have raided the villages to the south. They burn homes, take lives, and leave nothing but ashes in their wake. They draw near, and we are next. The words land like a stone, stirring panic. Women clutch their children, their eyes wide with terror. Men exchange grim glances, their hands tightening on staff and tools. Elias feels his doubts resurface, cold and sharp as a blade, cutting through the hope he had begun to nurture. Can faith shield them from such a threat? He recalls James's promise, bold and unwavering, a beacon in the dark. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4:7. The words challenge him, for submission feels like weakness in the face of swords and fire. Yet he senses a deeper truth, a paradox that defies human logic. Submission is not surrender, but strength, a choice to trust God's power over his own frail resolve. The promise of resistance, of the enemy's flight, kindles a spark of hope, yet fear lingers, a shadow at the edge of his heart. What does it mean to resist when death itself threatens? The air grows heavy with the scent of fear and torch smoke, and Elias feels the weight of the village's collective dread. When fear whispers of defeat, to whom do you turn yourself? Or the one who holds all things? Miriam calls for a gathering of prayer, her voice cutting through the rising panic like a blade through fog. The village converges in the communal hall, a low structure of stone and wood, its walls etched with ancient prayers carved by hands long gone. The air is thick with the scent of olive oil, poured into shallow bowls to anoint the assembly, its fragrance rich and grounding, mingling with the faint smoke of incense that curls toward the ceiling. Lamps flicker along the walls, casting shadows that dance like spirits, their light warm but trembling. Elias joins the circle, his heart heavy but open, his hands clasped tightly, the calluses rough against his skin. The room feels alive, the air heavy with the weight of shared hope and fear. Miriam leads, her voice a steady anchor in the storm of fear, her presence a testament to faith unshaken. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up, she declares, her words drawn from James chapter 4, each syllable resonant with conviction. Our strength lies not in walls or weapons, but in the one who sees our need. Let us draw near to him, and he will draw near to us. James 4:8, she anoints each person, her fingers tracing oil across their foreheads, the touch cool and steady, like a promise sealed. As she reaches Elias, her eyes meet his, deep with wisdom, and she whispers, "Trust and act." Elias prays, his voice joining the chorus, not for deliverance from danger, but for courage to live his faith, to act, to speak, to trust. The words of Isaiah rise like a tide within him. Steady and sure, seek the Lord while he may be found. Call on him while he is near. Isaiah 55:6. The room, lit by flickering lamps, seems to glow with a light beyond the physical. A reminder of the promise, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Psalm 27:1. He feels a presence, a peace that surpasses understanding, as if the prayer is not his alone, but a chorus joined by unseen voices. Philippians 4:7. The air grows still, the scent of oil and incense weaving a sacred stillness. And Elias feels his fear ease, his heart steadied by a strength not his own. The villagers' voices rise, their prayers blending into a tapestry of hope, their faces softened in the lamplight. Elias feels a stirring, a call to act, to trust, to live his faith in the face of the coming storm. What fears hold you captive, and what light might set you free? As the prayer ends, the village emerges into the night, their faces softened, their resolve strengthened. Elias feels his faith as a flame, small but growing, fanned by each act, sharing bread, speaking peace, praying with his people. Yet he knows the road is long, the drought, the bandits, his own doubts, they are tests. Refining him, as James foretold, let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. James 1:4. The village, too, begins to change. Families share their stores, their hands open where once they were closed. Prayers grow bolder, their voices weaving a tapestry of hope that defies the barren fields. The square, once a place of strife, becomes a hub of shared labor, women weaving blankets, their needles flashing in the sunlight, men repairing walls, their hammers ringing against stone, children carrying water for the elderly, their laughter a rare melody. Elias learns to listen, to speak with care, to act with courage, his heart slowly aligning with the wisdom Miriam teaches. Yet not all are swayed. Amos, proud and unyielding, resists the call to unity. At a gathering in the square, he stands, his voice booming, his face flushed with defiance. Why share with strangers when our own suffer? Why trust dreams when swords approach? His words stir murmurs, some nodding in agreement, their fear rekindled. Elias sees himself in Amos, his own pride, his own fear of yielding, a reflection of the elder brother in the parable of the prodigal son. Resentful of grace freely given, Luke 15:28-30, he wonders, can such a heart be softened? Jesus' words offer hope. Gentle yet piercing, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth, Matthew 5:5. Elias clings to this promise, his heart stirred by the possibility of transformation, not only for Amos, but for himself. The air carries the scent of dust and anticipation, and Elias feels a call to act, to bridge the divide with words of peace, with deeds of love. What pride within you resists the gentle call of grace? One night, Elias dreams of a river, its waters clear and cool, flowing through the barren fields, bringing life where death reigned. The water sparkles under a starlit sky, its surface rippling with light, and a voice speaks, resonant and sure, whoever believes in me. As scripture has said, rivers of living water will flow from within them. John 7:38. He wakes, heart racing, the dream's promise lingering like dew on parched ground, the air cool and heavy with the scent of night. He shares it with Miriam, who smiles, her eyes deep with wisdom, her face lined with years of faith. God speaks in the quiet. She says, her voice soft but certain. But his voice demands action. Draw near to him, and he will guide your steps, James 4:8. Elias resolves to act, not only for himself, but for the village. He organizes a gathering in the square, urging the people to share not just food, but hope, to pray not only for rain, but for hearts transformed. The cobblestones gleam faintly under torchlight, and the air carries the scent of burning wood and anticipation, a faint warmth against the evening's chill. The meeting is fraught with tension, the crowd restless, their face out-etched with fear and doubt. Levi, ever skeptical, stands, his voice sharp. Dreams do not fill bellies. Elias, why waste breath on visions when famine and swords threaten? His words sting, and Elias feels doubt creep in, a shadow over his resolve. Yet he recalls James's warning against double-mindedness, a call to purity of heart. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts. You double-minded, James 4:8. He steps forward, his voice steady despite the tremor within. the torchlight casting his shadow long across the stones. Our faith is not in dreams alone, but in the God who gives them, he says, his words clear, each syllable measured. Let us act and trust him to provide. To his surprise, Sarah, the widow, stands beside him, her frail frame resolute, her eyes bright with faith. Elias gave when he had little, she says, her voice clear as a bell, cutting through the murmurs. If we give, God will multiply, as he did with the loaves and fishes. Her words, echoing the miracle of John 6:9-11, silence the doubters. Slowly, hands open, and provisions are shared: jars of oil, sacks of grain, scraps of cloth for the cold nights. The air fills with the scent of shared burdens, the faint rustle of sacks and jars, and the murmurs of the crowd soften, tinged with hope. The act is not a solution to the drought, but a defiance of despair, a testament to faith made visible. Elias feels a quiet awe, his heart lifted by the sight of open hands, the sound of shared prayers, the scent of unity rising like incense. He recalls the words of Jesus, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me," Matthew 25:40. What would it cost you to open your hands, to trust God with your scarcity? Weeks pass, and the village grows stronger, not in wealth, but in spirit. The square, once a place of strife, becomes a hub of shared labor, women weaving blankets, their needles flashing in the sunlight, men repairing walls, their hammers ringing against stone, children carrying water for the elderly, their laughter a rare melody. Elias learns to listen, to speak with care, to act with courage, his heart slowly aligning with the wisdom Miriam teaches. Yet the threat of bandits draws nearer, a shadow lengthening across the horizon, their approach whispered in the wind. Miriam gathers the elders, her voice unwavering, her presence a rock in the storm. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless, is this to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world, James 4:27. Her words echo in Elias's heart, a call to action, a reminder of the faith he is beginning to live. One dusk, as the sky burns crimson, a stranger stumbles into the village, his clothes torn, his face etched with grief, his steps unsteady on the cobblestones. He collapses near the well, his breath ragged, his hands trembling. The crowd gathers, their whispers sharp with fear, their faces pale in the fading light. Elias kneels beside him, offering water from his own flask, the cool liquid spilling slightly as he holds it to the man's lips. The stranger, Jonah, speaks of bandits who burned his home, taking his family and leaving him for dead. His voice breaks, but he clings to a fragile hope. His words soft yet resolute. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. Elias feels a call, rooted in James's teaching, a stirring in his soul. Against Amos's protests, "We cannot save strangers when we starve," he offers Jonah shelter and a share of his bread, the crust rough against his fingers. The axe sparks debate, and Amos's voice rises, sharp as a blade, his face flushed with defiance. "This is folly. We weaken ourselves for a man who brings nothing." Elias feels anger stir, a fire in his chest, but he recalls James's warning, stark and sobering. The tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. 55. He chooses silence, praying for wisdom, his heart pounding like a drum. Miriam intervenes, her voice a balm, steady and clear. God's wisdom is impartial, full of mercy, and yields a harvest of righteousness. James 3:17-18. She turns to Amos, her eyes gentle but firm, her presence commanding. To turn away the needy is to turn away God's blessing. Have you forgotten the words of our Lord? "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me," Matthew 25:40. Her words sway the village, and Jonah is welcomed, his presence a reminder of the cost of compassion. his story a mirror to their own trials. Have you ever met such a soul whose pain mirrors your own, yet points you to hope? Elias sees in Jonah a reflection of his journey from doubt to trust, from words to deeds. The village, stirred by this act, grows bolder, their faith kindled like a flame in the dark. Families share their last stores, their hands open, their prayers fervent. Yet the bandits' threat looms, a shadow on the horizon, their approach whispered in the wind. Elias feels the weight of what lies ahead, his heart torn between fear and resolve. He recalls Hebrews, a verse that anchors him. Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Hebrews 11:1. The words challenge him to trust, not in his strength, but in God's provision. To act despite the uncertainty. The air carries the scent of dust and fear. And Elias feels the weight of the village's hope resting on their collective faith. He recalls the words of Jesus, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled, Matthew 5:6. The promise stirs him, a reminder that faith, though tested, can yield a harvest of righteousness. One night, as the village prays in the communal hall, the air thick with the scent of incense and olive oil, the lamps casting a warm glow on the stone walls, Elias feels a presence, a peace that surpasses understanding, Philippians 4:7. The incense curls upward, its fragrance mingling with the oil's rich scent, creating a sacred stillness. The prayers rise, a chorus of voices blending into a tapestry of hope. Their faces softened in the lamplight. Elias speaks, his voice carrying a new resolve. Each word measured. Resonant, let us prepare, but let us trust. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble, Psalm 46:1. The people listen, their fear easing, their faces softening in the lamplight. Their faith kindled like a flame in the dark. The air grows still, the scent of oil and incense weaving a sacred stillness. And Elias feels his heart steadied by a strength not his own. He recalls the words of Isaiah, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God, Isaiah 41:10. The promise anchors him, a reminder that God's presence is their shield, their strength, their hope. What refuge do you seek when trouble looms? And where does your strength lie? As part one draws to a close, Elias stands at the village's edge, gazing at the horizon where the storm clouds part, revealing a single star, its light ablaze against the dark. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of distant rain, a whisper of hope in the barren night. Elias feels a call not to perfection, but to perseverance, to live a faith that moves, that speaks, that trusts. The words of Jesus resound, clear and commanding. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:16. But the bandits approach, their shadows lengthening, their threat a fire on the horizon. Elias knows his faith, like gold, must face the furnace. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. James wrote James 1:2. Elias clings to this truth, uncertain but resolute, as the star above burns brighter, a beacon in the gathering night. The wind carries the faint scent of rain, a promise of life, and Elias feels his heart stir, his faith kindled, his soul ready for the trials to come. Will your faith shine through the fire, or will it falter in the deepening dark? Can a tongue that lifts praises to the heavens also ignite a flame that consumes a soul? What wisdom can steer a heart when shadows of fear and pride clash in the dark? Does a spirit, humbled before its maker, find strength to stand against the storm's fury when foes draw near with blades and flame? Will your faith falter or rise as a beacon? And if God's voice calls through the chaos, will your deeds echo his eternal truth? In the crucible of trial, where faith is forged and hearts are refined, a voice resounds from the heavens, steady and unyielding. It speaks not of fleeting safety, but of enduring sacrifice, not of hollow words, but of a life transformed by obedience to the divine will. The village, perched precariously on the edge of a barren plain, trembles beneath a sky black with foreboding, its clouds heavy with the weight of an impending storm. The air is laden with the scent of dust and dread, laced with the acrid tang of smoke from distant fires set by marauding bandits. Their glow a sinister stain on the horizon. The wind howls, a restless spirit, rattling the village's weathered shutters and stirring the dust into swirling eddies that sting the eyes and coat the tongue with gritty bitterness. The cobblestones of the square, smoothed by generations of weary feet, reflect the torchlight's flickering dance, casting shadows that writhe like restless spirits across the ground. The villagers huddle within homes of stone and timber, their prayers a soft murmur against the night's unrest. Their hearts torn between the fragile hope kindled in recent days through shared bread with Sarah, the widow, and united prayers in the hall and the dread of an approaching peril. The faint scent of olive oil lingers from past gatherings, a whisper of life amidst the desolation of a drought-ravaged land, where cracked fields stretch endlessly, their fissures like scars on the earth's weary flesh, a testament to trials endured. The distant rumble of thunder rolls across the plain, a mournful echo of the village's plight, while the faint clatter of hooves hints at the bandits' advance, their fires glowing brighter with each passing hour, their presence a shadow looming ever closer. The village's silence is broken only by the creak of wooden beams and the occasional moan of a child, a poignant reminder of the stakes at hand, as the cold night air seeps through the cracks, chilling their bones and stirring their fears. The flickering torchlight dances on the walls, casting eerie shapes that seem to mimic the restless spirits of their ancestors, urging them to hold fast. The sound of a lone owl hoots in the distance, its cry blending with the wind, a haunting reminder of the night's dangers, while the occasional crack of dry branches underfoot adds to the tension in the air. The faint trickle of water from a leaking roof echoes through the village, a subtle sign of the storm's approach, heightening the sense of urgency among the people. And the distant barking of a stray dog pierces the night, adding to the unease. The rustle of leaves in the wind carries a whisper of the approaching danger, while the faint glow of the bandits' fires reflects off the cracked earth, a constant reminder of the threat looming ahead. The chill of the stone walls seeps into their hands as they pray, a tactile reminder of their vulnerability, and the distant cry of a wolf adds a layer of primal fear to the night, mingling with the soft rustling of their robes as they move. Have you ever stood on the brink of peril, where faith alone could anchor your trembling soul? Elias stands at the village's border, his cloak whipping in the biting wind, his eyes locked on the horizon where the bandits' fires burn, their glow a menacing promise of chaos and destruction. The scent of parched earth and distant smoke stings his nostrils, sharp and bitter, while the faint, ominous clatter of hooves echoes through the night, a harbinger of the storm drawing ever closer. His heart, once faltering in doubt's shadow, now bears a spark of resolve, ignited by the acts of part one sharing bread with Sarah, the widowed mother, in the village square, speaking peace to Amos and Levi amidst their strife, praying with the village in the communal hall, where the air was thick with the rich scent of olive oil and incense, a sacred stillness enveloping their supplications. Yet fear grips him, its icy fingers tightening around his chest, whispering of blades and blood, of homes reduced to ash and sorrow. The words of James echo in his mind, bold and unyielding, like a beacon piercing the dark. Submit yourselves. Then, to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4:7. Submission feels like a paradox, a surrender that promises strength, a yielding that defies defeat. Elias recalls Miriam's teaching, her voice steady as the ancient stones of the village well, resonant with wisdom. Our strength lies not in swords or walls, but in the one who sees our need and hears our cries. The village prepares with urgency, men sharpening staffs into makeshift spears, their hands trembling yet resolute, their faces etched with determination. Women gathering children into the safety of stone-walled homes, their voices high but firm, offering solace amidst the dread. Elders praying beneath the gnarled olive tree in the square, their voices rising like incense to the heavens, their robes swaying in the wind. The faint scent of olive oil lingering from past prayers, The air is thick with the scent of sweat and anticipation, the faint tang of metal from tools hastily repurposed for defense. And Elias feels the weight of their hope resting on his shoulders, a burden both heavy and sacred, a call to lead when he is no warrior, no elder, only a man learning to trust. Can his faith, still fragile, shield them from steel and fire? The words of Isaiah rise, a steady anchor in the storm of his thoughts. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. Isaiah 41:10. The promise steadies him, but doubt lingers, a shadow at the edge of his resolve, whispering of the bandits' strength, their blades honed, their hearts hardened by greed and violence. Elias recalls the psalmist's cry, resonant and sure, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Psalm 27:1. The words are a lifeline, fragile yet strong, pulling him from the mire of fear. Yet the weight of leadership presses heavy, and he wonders if his faith, tested by the drought, can endure the fire of an enemy's approach. The wind carries the faint scent of smoke, a reminder of the peril drawing near, and Elias's heart pounds, torn between fear and the call to act. The village's hope, kindled by shared provisions and fervent prayers, feels fragile, like a flame flickering in the wind. He recalls the words of Jesus, gentle yet piercing, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:16. But how can light shine in such darkness, when the fires of destruction burn on the horizon? What anchors your heart when the storm of fear threatens to overwhelm your spirit? In the village square, the people gather, their faces pale in the torchlight, their voices hushed with dread, their eyes darting to the horizon where the bandits' fires glow. A menacing promise of chaos. The cobblestones gleam faintly, reflecting the flickering flames, and the air carries the scent of burning wood and anxious sweat. A heavy pall over the gathering. Miriam stands, her silver hair catching the glow. Her presence, a rock in the rising tide of panic. Her robes, frayed but dignified, sway slightly in the wind, and her voice cuts through the murmurs like a blade through silk, steady and resonant. We face a trial, she declares, her words drawn from the sacred text of James. But trials are the forge of faith, as it is written. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. James chapter 4. She gestures to the sky, where a single star pierces the heavy clouds, its light faint but unyielding, a silent promise in the gathering dark. Our hope is not in our strength, but in us. Miriam continues, her eyes scanning the crowd, meeting each gaze with a steady resolve that seems to draw strength from an unseen source. Let us prepare, but let us trust. Let us act, but let us seek the wisdom from above, which is pure, peace-loving, considerate, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere, James 3:17. The crowd murmurs, some nodding, their hands clasped in prayer, their eyes lifted to the star, while others shift uneasily, their lips pressed tight, their brows furrowed with doubt, their hearts heavy with fear. Elias steps forward, his heart pounding, his voice unsteady but clear, the dust stirring beneath his sandals as he moves. We will stand together, he says, his words echoing Miriam's call, each syllable measured to calm the rising fear. Not with swords alone, but with faith. Faith that moves, that acts, that trusts in the one who sees us. The crowd listens, their tension easing slightly, but Amos, broad-shouldered and proud, scoffs, his voice cutting through the silence like a whip, sharp and unyielding. Faith against bandits, he bellows, his fists clenched, his face flushed with defiance, his eyes blazing with scorn. You speak folly, Elias. We need action, not prayers that vanish into the wind. His words sting, igniting murmurs of agreement among some, their fear rekindled by his challenge. The air grows heavy with the scent of torch smoke and tension, and Elias feels anger rise, a fire in his chest, threatening to spill forth in words of rebuke. He recalls James's warning, stark and sobering. Like a bell tolling in the night, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. Mace 3:5. He breathes deeply, the cool night air grounding him, its faint scent of dust and smoke steadying his resolve. He chooses silence over strife, his heart pounding like a drum, and prays for wisdom to guide his words. Amos, he says at last, his voice low, measured, each syllable chosen with care to quell the rising tide of division. Our actions will speak, but they must be guided by wisdom, not pride. Let us seek peace, not strife. For the wisdom from above is gentle, full of mercy, and impartial. The words, drawn from James 3:17, surprise him, as if spoken by another, guided by a wisdom not his own. The crowd watches, their murmurs softening, their eyes fixed on him, and Miriam nods, her face softened by a smile that speaks of hope, her eyes warm with approval. Elias feels a shift within a victory over his own tongue, a step toward the wisdom he seeks. The torchlight flickers, casting his shadow long across the cobblestones, and he recalls the psalmist's prayer. A plea for purity of speech set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the door of my lips. Psalm 141:3. What words have you spoken in haste or pride that kindled strife instead of peace? The village prepares with urgency, fortifying walls with stones and timber, their hammers ringing against the night like a call to battle, the sound sharp and rhythmic in the stillness. Elias joins them, his hands blistered from hauling stones, his heart torn between fear and resolve, the scent of sawdust and sweat grounding him in the labor of survival. Men sharpen staffs into makeshift spears, their movements tense, their faces set with determination, their hands trembling yet resolute. Women gather children into the safety of stone-walled homes, their voices soft but firm, offering comfort amidst the dread, their hands steady as they braid blankets for the cold nights ahead. Elders pray beneath the gnarled olive tree in the square, their voices rising like incense to the heavens, their hands clasped in fervent hope, their robes swaying in the wind, the faint scent of olive oil lingering from past prayers. The air is thick with the scent of anticipation, the faint tang of metal from tools hastily repurposed for defense. And Elias feels the weight of their trust, a burden both heavy and sacred, a call to lead when he doubts his own strength. He recalls James's teaching on wisdom, a beacon in the case of preparation, who is wise and understanding among you. Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. James 3:13. He longs for this wisdom, not mere knowledge, but the insight to lead, to unite, to trust in the face of peril. The wind carries the faint scent of smoke from the bandits' fires, a chilling reminder of the approaching threat. And Elias feels his doubt resurface, sharp and cold, like a blade pressed against his heart. Can he lead when he himself trembles? He seeks Miriam, finding her by the village well, her hands tracing the carved prayers on its rim, the stones worn smooth by generations of supplicants. The air is thick with the metallic tang of water deep within the earth, a scent of life amid the drought's desolation, a whisper of hope in the barren night. The well stands at the village's heart, its carvings names, prayers, promises, etched by those who came before. Their faith a legacy in stone, a testament to endurance through trials. Miriam's eyes, deep with wisdom, meet his, and he confesses, his voice low, his gaze fixed on the ground, the dust stirring beneath his sandals. I am no leader. Miriam, how can I guide them when I doubt myself, when fear clouds my heart? Her gaze is steady, her voice soft but firm, like a rock in a rushing stream, unwavering amidst the current. Wisdom comes not from your strength, Elias, but from one. Ask, and he will give generously, without finding fault. James 1:5. She places a hand on his shoulder, her touch warm, grounding, the faint scent of olive oil lingering on her fingers from the prayers of the night before. The wisdom from above is pure, peace-loving, considerate, full of mercy and good fruit. impartial and sincere, James 3:17. Her words stir him, a reminder that leadership is not in power, but in humility, in seeking God's guidance above all. Elias kneels, his fingers brushing the cool stone of the well, the carvings rough against his skin, each groove a testament to faith endured through generations. He prays, his voice a whisper against the night's silence, the stars above piercing the dark with their faint, unyielding light, Lord. Grant me wisdom to lead, to speak, to act in your truth. The words of Proverbs rise, steady and sure like a beacon in the night. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, Proverbs 9:10. He feels a stirring, a peace that surpasses understanding. As if the prayer has kindled a light within him, Philippians 4:7. The air carries the faint scent of water, a promise of life amidst the drought, and Elias rises, his heart steadied, his resolve strengthened, his faith a flame growing brighter in the dark. What wisdom do you seek when the path ahead is shrouded in shadow? The next day, tension grips the village as scouts report the bandits' approach. Their fires now a vivid glow on the horizon, their shouts faintly audible in the wind. A chilling promise of violence. The air is thick with the scent of smoke and fear, and the village square hums with urgent voices, a cacophony of panic and resolve. Amos rallies a group, his voice booming, his fists clenched, his face flushed with defiance, his eyes blazing with scorn. "We must fight," he declares, his words sharp, igniting murmurs of agreement among some, their fear turning to anger, their hands tightening on makeshift spears, their faces set with grim determination. Levi, ever skeptical, counters, his voice laced with doubt, his eyes narrowed, his stance rigid. "Fight with what? We have no weapons, only prayers that echo in the void. Your faith is folly, Elias." The crowd sways, their fear rising like a tide, their voices a tangle of panic and division. The air heavy with the scent of dust and tension, Elias feels the urge to speak, to judge, his heart pounding with a mix of anger and fear. Amos's pride grates against him, a mirror of his own past arrogance, and Levi's doubt stirs his own uncertainties, a reminder of his struggle to trust. Yet James's warning echoes, clear and piercing, like a bell tolling in the night. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings, who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be James 3:9-10. The words halt him, like a hand on his shoulder, urging restraint, and he recalls the psalmist's prayer, a plea for purity of speech. "Set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the door of my lips." Psalm 141:3. Elias steps forward, his heart racing but his voice steady, the cobblestones cool beneath his feet, grounding him in the moment. "Brothers, sisters," he says, his words measured, each syllable chosen with care to calm the rising tide of division. "Our strength lies not in division, but in unity. Let us speak words that build, not burn, words that heal, not wound." The air carries the scent of torch smoke and anticipation, and the crowd quiets, their eyes fixed on him, their murmurs softening like a fading storm. Sarah, the widow, steps beside him, her frail frame resolute, her eyes bright with faith, her presence a quiet strength. Elias speaks truth, she says, her voice clear, cutting through the tension like a blade through fog. "When I had nothing, he gave. God multiplied his gift. Trust him now and act." Her words, echoing the miracle of the loaves and fishes, John 6:9-11, silence the crowd, their fear easing, their faces softening in the torchlight, their hands loosening on their makeshift weapons. Elias feels a spark, his faith kindled by her trust, her words a testament to the power of action rooted in faith. He recalls Jesus' teaching, "Gentle yet piercing blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God," Matthew 5:9. The air grows still, the scent of smoke and tension fading. And Elias feels a quiet victory not over Amos or Levi, but over the fire of his own tongue, a step toward the wisdom he seeks. Have you ever spoken words that healed, when division threatened to consume all hope? Elias organizes the village, not for battle but for unity, urging them to share their stores, to pray together, to stand as one. The air fills with the scent of shared provisions oil, grain, the faint sweetness of dried figs, and the murmurs soften, tinged with hope. Women distribute blankets, their hands steady despite the fear, their voices soft as they comfort the children huddled in their arms, their faces lit with quiet resolve. Men reinforce walls, their hammers ringing with purpose, their faces set with determination, their hands calloused from labor, their movements a testament to shared strength. Children carry water to the elderly, their laughter a rare melody in the tension, their small hands trembling but resolute, their innocence a beacon of hope amidst the dread. Yet Amos remains defiant, his pride a wall unyielding, his voice sharp as he accuses Elias in the square. You lead us to ruin. Your faith is folly, your dreams empty. His words sting, igniting murmurs of doubt among some, their fear rekindled by his challenge. Elias feels anger rise, a fire in his chest, threatening to spill forth in words of rebuke. The air grows heavy with the scent of dust and tension, and he recalls James's call to humility, stark and sobering. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up, James chapter 4:10. He kneels before Amos, his voice low, his eyes steady, the cobblestones cold against his knees, grounding him in the moment. I am no leader. Amos, he says, his words soft but resolute, each syllable a testament to faith. But I trust the one who is. Join us, and let God guide our steps. The gesture shocks the crowd, their murmurs falling silent, their eyes wide with awe. Amos hesitates, his fists unclenching, his face softening, his pride wavering in the face of Elias's humility. The air grows still, the scent of dust and torchlight grounding the moment, and Elias feels a quiet victory not over Amos, but over his own pride. The words of Jesus echo, clear and commanding. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. Matthew 20:26. The crowd watches, their tension easing, and Miriam nods, her eyes warm with approval, her face softened by a smile that speaks of hope. Levi, standing nearby, shifts uneasily, his doubt wavering, his eyes meeting Elias's with a flicker of respect. The air carries the faint scent of burning wood, a reminder of the approaching threat. But Elias feels a spark of hope, his faith kindled by the unity forming before him. What pride within you resists the call to bow before God's will? As night falls, the bandits draw closer, their fires now a vivid glow on the horizon, their shouts piercing the silence like blades. A chilling promise of violence. The village gathers in the communal hall, the air thick with the scent of olive oil and incense, the lamps casting a warm glow on the stone walls, their light dancing like spirits in the stillness. The walls, etched with ancient prayers, seem to hum with the faith of generations. A legacy of trust in the face of trial. Miriam leads a prayer, her voice a steady anchor in the storm of fear. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you, James 4:8. The oil's fragrance, rich and grounding, mingles with the smoke of incense, creating a sacred stillness that envelops the room. The villagers' voices rise, their prayers blending into a tapestry of hope, their faces softened in the lamplight, their hands clasped in fervent supplication. Elias prays, his voice joining the chorus, not for victory over enemies, but for courage to trust, to act, to speak in God's truth. Jonah, the stranger, stands beside him, his face etched with grief but resolute, his hands steady despite his loss. I lost all, Jonah says, his voice soft, trembling with the weight of his pain. Yet God spared me. He is near, even now, a refuge for the brokenhearted. His words, echoing Psalm 34:18, stir Elias's heart, a reminder of the Lord's closeness to those crushed in spirit. Elias feels a spark, his faith kindled by Jonah's trust, his words a testament to the power of hope amidst loss. He recalls Hebrews, A verse that anchors him in the face of uncertainty. Faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. Hebrews 11:1-2. Other one. The air grows still, the scent of oil and incense, weaving a sacred stillness. And Elias feels his heart steadied by a strength not his own. The villagers' prayers rise, a chorus of voices blending into a tapestry of hope, their faces softened in the lamplight. Sarah, the widow, stands, her frail frame resolute, her eyes bright with faith. God multiplied Elias's gift. She says, her voice clear, cutting through the silence like a bell, He will multiply our faith if we trust and act. Her words, echoing the miracle of the loaves and fishes, John 6:9-11, kindle a spark of hope in the crowd, their fear easing, their resolve strengthened, their hands loosening on their makeshift weapons. What hope do you cling to when all you see is darkness? As dawn breaks, the bandits reach the village's edge, their shouts piercing the morning's hush, their blades glinting in the pale light, a chilling promise of violence. The air is thick with the scent of smoke and steel, and fear ripples through the crowd like a wave, their faces pale, their hands trembling. Elias stands with Miriam, Sarah, and Jonah, their hands joined, their faces resolute in the face of peril. The village has prepared not with swords, but with unity, their stores shared, their prayers fervent, their hearts steadfast in faith. Elias speaks, his voice steady, each word measured, resonant in the morning's hush. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble, Psalm 46:1. The words carry a power beyond his own, a testimony to the faith that has grown within him through trials. The villagers stand, their hands open, their hearts unwavering, their faces set with determination. The air grows still, the scent of smoke and steel fading, and a hush falls over the scene, as if the heavens themselves hold their breath. The bandits, expecting resistance, find a village united, their hands open in offering, their hearts steadfast in trust. A leader among them, his face scarred and weathered, his blade gleaming in the dawn, pauses, his stance wary, his eyes meeting Elias's. "Why do you not fight?" he demands, his voice rough, his gaze searching, his blade still raised. Elias, guided by wisdom from above, replies, his voice clear, resonant, each syllable a testament to faith. "We fight with faith, with mercy, with trust in the one who sees all." His words, rooted in James 3:17, carry a power beyond his own. A testimony to the wisdom that is pure, peace-loving, considerate, and full of mercy. The bandit hesitates, his blade lowering, his eyes searching Elias's, as if glimpsing something beyond the village's walls, a truth greater than steel, a strength beyond swords. The air grows still, the scent of smoke and steel fading, and the bandit turns, his men following, their fires dimming as they retreat into the dawn, their shouts fading into the wind like a storm passing. The village stands, their faith a beacon, their unity a shield, their prayers answered not in battle, but in peace. Elias feels a peace, a victory not of flesh, but of spirit, his heart lifted by the sight of a community transformed by faith. The words of Jesus resound, clear and commanding, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Matthew 5:16. The air carries the faint scent of dew, a whisper of life in the barren plain, and Elias feels his faith burn brighter, a flame in the dark, a testament to God's grace. As the sun rises, casting a golden glow over the village, Elias stands with Miriam, Sarah, and Jonah, their faces alight with hope, their hands joined in unity. The cobblestones gleam in the morning light, and the air carries the scent of dew and possibility, a promise of life amidst the drought. The village, once divided by fear and pride, now stands united, their faith tested and refined, their hearts rooted in God's truth. Elias recalls James's promise, a beacon in the aftermath. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness, James 3:18. The harvest is not of grain, but of souls transformed, united, steadfast in faith. Yet the journey is not over. The drought persists, and new trials loom on the horizon, their shadows faint but ever present. Elias knows his faith, like gold, must continue to face the fire, refined by each trial, strengthened by each act. He clings to the words of Isaiah, resonant and sure. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles, Isaiah 40:31. The village stands, their faith a flame in the dark, their unity a testament to God's grace. Elias feels a call not to perfection, but to perseverance, to live a faith that moves, that speaks, that trusts. The air carries the faint scent of rain, a whisper of hope, and Elias feels his heart stir, his faith kindled, his soul ready for the trials to come. The words of Jesus echo a final call to action. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another, John 13:35. Will your faith shine as a beacon or flicker in the face of trial?